And now it's time for the Impact Wrestling Report. Here's your host, Mathew Shaffer.
What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to another edition of the Impact Wrestling Report. I'm your host, Mathew Shaffer. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Matthew_Shaffer. Of course, if you like this content, you want to receive more information and more news and views and reviews from Michael Jargo, Big Rick Vickery, Raymond Hernandez, and of course, the famous Bill Apter. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. You'll be notified when we upload content just like this. Now, I do apologize. I have been absent the last couple weeks. I just actually re-enrolled in college. Went back to school for broadcast and video production. So hopefully down the line, I'll be able to bring you some even better content as I continue to learn and evolve and gain more knowledge or education. But let's get rocking and rolling. Now, this video is actually just a edit, a simulcast, as I actually recorded what you're about to see as well for the Monday Morning Locker Room, which you can check them out at hackerhumming.podbean.com. So I hope you enjoy this edition of the Impact Wrestling Report, Bound for Glory 2018. Let's talk about Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory. Now, generally speaking, when we break down a pay-per-view, we kind of go match by match, right? But tonight, I think the main event is what really stood out coming out of Impact Wrestling. And I think if you've listened this far, I'm going to go ahead and start right there. So Austin Aries and Johnny Impact, Johnny Morrison, Johnny Hennigan, Johnny Mundo, whatever you want to call him, he went ahead and fought with Austin Aries for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. Now, if you have been living under a rock the last couple weeks, or you just don't watch Impact Wrestling, or maybe you're just a casual listener of our content and a casual viewer of World Wrestling Entertainment, you might not be aware that Austin Aries and John Morrison, Johnny Impact, have been in an ongoing feud on Twitter, and it actually exploded this last Saturday night at Impact Wrestling's Hall of Fame. It basically started with Austin Aries calling Johnny Impact wife Husky after he was called short. It then broke down at the Hall of Fame ceremony. Austin Aries was, I guess, preparing a speech to speak on behalf and say congratulations to Abyss, and used that time to call out Impact, so much so as saying he was going to come out and apologize for his Twitter rant, but then he saw the TMZ Expo, which the Impact family, Valkyrie and Johnny Impact, were covered by TMZ in an interview where they kind of went in depth on their feelings as far as how the Twitter rivalry had broken down. Getting into the match itself now, with all that going on, with the blow-up that happened at the Hall of Fame ceremony, with them two getting into a pull-apart where you don't know if the lines are blurred so much if it's real or it's fake, we finally had our main event. And that was, of course, like I said, a barn burner. So let's kind of get into it. The match starts out with Austin Aries immediately looking to go for a last chancery early on. They both were aggressive. You definitely could tell that their tension built into the match itself. They were very stiff with each other. There was, of course, a bit of a filling out process. The crowd was split fairly, I'd say, kind of right down the middle. A 205 chant broke out right away. Impact landed a number of punches, sending Austin Aries into the corner. They fought to the floor. Austin Aries charged Impact, who was able to jump up and does a split-legged moonsault by using the apron edge and the barricade. It was a pretty cool scene. Aries got up the top rope and he crashed down onto Impact. He then landed a massive chop to the chest, sending him back into the ring itself. Aries then was able to fight back with a kick to the back of Impact's neck. He got up and he slapped Aries in the face, though. John Morrison, Johnny Impact. Sorry, it's hard to move back and forth between all of his names. Aries with a bunch of knees and punches to the face. Aries came back and he landed a kick to the side of the head. Aries then stood on Impact's face and he taunted and yelled, I guess you might say, at Taya Valkyrie. And she actually yelled back, I'm on the Money Locker Room so I can use vulgar language here. She yelled back, "Fuck you, bitch." Aries then hopped up on the turnbuckle and stretched out for a minute. Back and forth shots as Impact sent the champion to the corner. Impact got kicked again to the back of the neck, sending him to the outside. Aries then looked for a suicide dive, and he was get caught by an elbow. Something I noticed right away, and I mentioned to Alicia in the discussion group, was there wasn't a lot of space between that barricade and the ring. So I was definitely interested going into the night how they were going to make use of like suicide dives and jump to the outside of the ring area. There wasn't really much of a ring area. As I said, he was caught by elbow. Then Impact hit him with a springboard corkscrew splash. Went for a 2 count. Like I said, very intense match with both guys super snug. Like, I mean, they were definitely not holding back. Let's kind of get to the finish though of this match. Essentially what happened was as Aries got dropped, Impact hit his Starship Pain. He went for a cover. Aries was able to grab the bottom rope to stop the count though. He continued holding on long after Impact got off of him, so he was kind of just laying there or selling it, if you will. Roaring elbow then was, or sorry, Impact then hit him with a roaring elbow, a running drop kick, and a brain buster. No, I'm sorry, I misread that. I misread my notes here. Aries, I apologize, hit John Morrison with a roaring elbow and a brain buster. He went for a pinfall 1, 2, 3, but Impact got his foot on the bottom rope, so the match continued. Aries and Taya then talked some trash at each other for a little bit. Aries then, with the knees to the head, he then hit he locked in the last chancery on John Morrison, John Impact. Impact then got out of it. Aries looked to take out Impact. Impact dodged, and Aries landed a suicide dive on Taya Valkyrie on the outside, sending her into the barricade. This enraged Johnny Impact. He then started wailing on Austin Aries on the floor, threw him back in the ring, kicked him in the throat, hit a brain buster, and then he hit a Starship Pain for the cover 1, 2, 3. Now, here's kind of where first off, before we get into the post-match controversy here, great for Johnny Impact. I'll be interested to see going forward if he's going to be sticking around in Impact for a good period of time. I guess if he's going to hold that belt. As he's been going in and out this year with Lucha Underground and some of his indie bookings and acting itself. So Johnny Impact's the champ, so I'm sure we're going to see him being the face of this company, unless they're just kind of putting it on him as a transition champion. I think that partially has to do with the fact that Austin Aries has been really selling the crap out of the fact that he's pissed. I mean, he's just, I might say unprofessional in a sense. And if that's what he's playing, then he's doing a hell of a job. But post-match, okay, so after the match, in a typical match when the champion is crowned or the victor is crowned, the person who's defeated usually lays on the, ring apron, quietly rolls out of the ring, and then gets out of the area, not to take away or draw attention. Austin Aries did no such thing. After Johnny Impact hit the Starship Pain, Austin Aries immediately got up. He no-sold it. He got out of the ring, and he looked like he was yelling up at commentary. I've seen Twitter posts and other articles that maybe say it could have been Don Callis, but he looked up and flipped him off, said, F you, fuck you, flipped the bird to the crowd, and then he went to the back, and Impact celebrated in the ring with Taya. So we have a new Impact World Heavyweight Champion, and it was definitely a barn burner, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I'm not quite sure if that was all the work, if this is all just playing into, the bad boy attitude of Austin Aries. If it isn't, and this was the final blow-up for Austin Aries, then based on his track record from what other pundits, reporters, wrestlers have said in multiple different podcasts and articles, it's not going to look good for Austin Aries. As we've seen in the past, when he was, Austin Starr, I think that's what, I believe that was his initial name when he was in TNA, when he first started. It didn't end well because of his attitude. He went to WWE, didn't end well, quote unquote, because of his attitude. And if this is not going to end well again because of his attitude, then, Austin Aries is definitely pulling at straws here. Now I'm going to kind of jump back to the order of the card, if you will. I'm not going to go in reverse order. So the first match of the night we saw was Rich Swann and Willie Mack, who was announced as his tag team partner last week on Impact, taking on Matt Sydal and Ethan Page. Rich Swann and Willie Mack got the victory when Swann pinned Sydal off the top rope with a Phoenix Splash. After the match, Willie Mack cut a promo. He kind of gave away a couple of front seats, and he put over the sponsor. Kind of just, I guess, maybe a new way to introduce your star, but Or one might say, well, we just signed for you, so work for your money. I don't know if I'm digging too deep into the political analysis of that. They then played a recent TMZ interview, which we talked about with Johnny Impact and Taya Valkyrie. They talked about that Twitter war. We saw that Conan was backstage and he got attacked. He says that King did it. Eli Drake cut a promo, and then he had his open challenge. Now, prior to the open challenge, it included kind of running down the New York Giants, so trying to get heat off of the crowd by putting down their local sports team, which has been hot recently due to Seattle representing my hometown, being not so happy with Elias on an episode of Monday Night Raw. This was a little weird. I don't think anybody saw this in the cards when Big Ray and Ben Hameen were predicting who was going to come out and fight Eli Drake last Saturday morning. This guy was never mentioned. James Ellsworth came out. Eli Drake defeated him soundly with a gravy train. Drake said he still wants to fight, and he gets Abyss. However, it's not a match, it's just a fight, which ends with Eli Drake taking a chokeslam through a table, newly 2018 Hall of Fame inductee, Abyss. And, of course, I believe, which I'm assuming that the Hitting the Mark guys probably got in here, the locker room boys got into. I think Abyss definitely deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. I think he should have been the first one in, to be quite honest. It's been long overdue. The guy's been, the foundation of that company. At times, the company was on his back with just some of the, storylines and how it was centered around him. One could even argue when Hogan came in, this was talked about on the last Sunday's edition of the Russo-kun podcast. Hulk Hogan really liked Abyss. Everybody liked Abyss. So, long overdue. We then got to the Knockouts Heavyweight Championship. Tessa Blanchard defeated Taya Valkyrie to retain the Knockouts title with a flying top rope codebreaker. And then, of course, it kind of ended with both women kicking out of each other's finishers during the match, with Taya Valkyrie ultimately winning. Great match. Happy to see Taya Valkyrie. Happy to see Taya Valkyrie, get in that main event spot. Not the right time for her to be the champ, as talked about on the Impact Attack, and I wholeheartedly agree. If you listen to the Impact Wrestling Report or watch it, I'm a big Tessa Blanchard fan. Happy to see Tessa Blanchard continue on as the champion. We saw Eddie Edwards defeat Moose via disqualification. Killer Cross choked out Eddie Edwards. He came out from the crowd within the first 3 minutes. Tommy Dreamer tried to come out, hit him with a kendo stick to save his former rival. And they kind of made it a tag team match. So that was the first part of this match. And then turned into Eddie Edwards and Tommy Dreamer taking on Moose and Killer Cross. So for those of you complaining that Killer Cross wasn't in a match on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen, Cross Colt, Killer Cross was there. Eddie Edwards and Tommy Dreamer defeated Moose and Killer Cross when Eddie Edwards actually rolled up Moose after Moose actually tried to hit him with a kendo stick. Cross and then Moose beat the hell out of Eddie post-match, including an apron powerbomb. So I definitely thought that Eddie Edwards should have lost. It would have, Ben and Ray mentioned, would have played better into his character as far as, continuing to go down that path of insanity. But overall, in the end, Moose and Killer Cross did, keep their heat by the beatdown. All right, so here is where things got to the point where Sami Callihan, Dave Crist, and Jay Crist, they defeated Brian Cage, Pentagon Jr., and Phoenix in an OVE rules match, which essentially is just a Texas Tornadoes match, just with 3 guys. So it's a Texas triple threat match, or trios match. However, in a shocking turn of events, Sami Callihan pinned Brian Cage with a pile driver. I got to give Big Ray credit here. As I was listening to the Impact Attack this weekend, I was yelling at the radio, dude, you're crazy. There's no way they're going to have Cage get pinned. Why are you going to have him get pinned in a tag team match? It really means nothing. Well, Mr. Big Ray, I was wrong. You called that correctly, because Brian Cage took his first pin. I'm a little disappointed with that. Good match. General, as far as what could be for a 6-man tag match, a little kind of all over. But, Sami Callihan, getting the pin, the draw, continues to draw. Then we finally saw the conclusion, one might say, of the LAX and OGZ feud in a concrete jungle death match. Now, this was weird, and it really looked unsafe. There was no ring mat in this ring. So it was just the wooden boards. I mean, it was interesting to see from a visual standpoint for a ring, and it was unique because it's not generally done on American television, that is. But it was definitely odd to see them working on boards, and they were kind of, slipping back and forth throughout the match on these boards because, that mat itself, while it still might not be the most comfortable, it at least gives those wrestlers traction to where they're not going to, slip and slide around. They were kind of slip and slide around these boards. However, Conan came out with a flapjack at the end to take out Hernandez and Homicide. And King took the street sweeper from LAX. So LAX was victorious, Conan, Santana, and Ortiz, and thus ends the conclusion of the OGs versus LAX feud. We then went and saw a video package. Allie, she went to the Undead Realm. I'm going to go ahead and go into deep detail here because it's a video package. So Allie goes into the Undead Realm, entering the coffin like Father James Mitchell promised. Now, Mitchell meets her there and tells her that Su Yung has Kira Hogan in the chapel. He reminds her she can't take her soul back, though. She goes upstairs and is soon attacked by a bridesmaid. She's fought off and then hatches, and then she kind of hatchets her with the hatchet. She then hatchets another. She lifts up a sheet to find her soul, which was just her, but left it be because, right, she can't take it. She did touch its hand, though, which Mitchell did warn against. Allie found Kira in the coffin, but Su Yung snuck in behind her with an axe, and she was stalking her around the chapel. They fought, and Su got the upper hand. She locked in the mandible claw, and Allie was neutralized. But as Sue's about to stab her, Allie hatchets her in the neck. Allie returns to the chapel to get Kira. They return to the coffin, but it won't open. Mitchell tells them he told her to get in, but nothing about getting out. Soon they're surrounded by bridesmaids, but then Rosemary pops up for the save. They open up the coffin, and Kira and Allie get in, but Sue returns, and Rosemary holds her off with weird hand powers as the others escape. And that's how that segment ended. So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, and that, like I said, the main event after that was Johnny Impact defeating Austin Aries. That was Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory. I gotta tell you, definitely I'd say a high A. If I had to give it, I'd say 8.7 to 8.9 out of 10. It was a good pay-per-view. I thought the video segment with Allie was a nice change of pace to insert into the pay-per-view. You actually paid for a video package that you probably could, only be seen right now on pay-per-view. I guess it'll probably be seen later on down the line. So if you only paid for that, then you're probably disappointed. But good overall pay-per-view itself. New Impact champion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that about wraps it up here today for another edition of the Impact Wrestling Report on the special edition for Bound for Glory 2018. Of course, you can like and subscribe to this content if you want more. And if you, hopefully you liked this review, go ahead and leave a comment. If you didn't like it, tell me why. If you don't like me, tell me. If you like me, tell me. That's kind of cool, too. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mathew Shaffer. Don't you dare go too far. We'll see you next time on the IWR.